A horse trader during the early days of Stalin, Vasili was known as the Wolf of Moscow for his unbridled reign of terror. A peasant, Vasili typically killed for money. There were 21 in all strangled, bound, doubled over and dumped in vacant lots around the Shabalovky district. Authorities linked the killings to the horse trading market on Moscow that happened every Wednesdays and Fridays. Vasili Ivanovich Komaroff was a Russian serial killer, convicted for the killing of 29 people in Moscow between 1921 and 1923. One of the earliest known serial killers in the Soviet Union, Komaroff was a horse trader who murdered at least 33 customers in the stable next to his home, and was executed on June 18, 1923. From 1921 until 1923, Moscow police hunted a killer who had made a habit of murdering men and dumping their bodies, enclosed in sacks, in one of the city's poorer neighborhoods. Oddly, the corpses always seemed to turn up the day after horses went to market in the same neighborhood, which led them to horse dealer Vasili Komaroff, a man who seemed a highly unlikely suspect on the surface and was known as a happy family man. To his closest friends, however, Komaroff was a violent fellow who had once tried to kill his own 8-year-old son. When authorities paid Komaroff's stable a visit, they discovered his latest victim under a pile of hay bagged and waiting for dumping. Komaroff confessed to being the Wolf of Moscow, claiming to have murdered 33 men he lured away from the nearby horse market and leading investigators to 5 additional bodies that were still enclosed in the trademark sacks, undiscovered. Some victims that the slayer had murdered had been thrown into a river and never found. He claimed he had simply waited until the unfortunate men had turned their backs on him and then had bludgeoned them with a hammer or strangled them to death. Vasili Komaroff was known among his neighbors as a friendly, smiling family man. He dealt in horses, and maintained a stable at his home, in Moscow's Shabalovky district. None who knew him well suspected that he might have been the Wolf of Moscow, an elusive killer who had terrorized the neighborhood and foiled police investigators in a 2-year manhunt. Times were hard and life was cheap in Russia, in the early 1920s. Revolution and a grueling civil war had trained the populace to live with danger, but the recent spate of murders in the nation's capital were something else, entirely. From the latter part of 1921, through early 1923, police pursued the brutal executioner of 21 male victims, each of whom had been discovered tightly bound in sacks, their bodies dumped on waste ground in the Shabalovky neighborhood. The corpses had been trussed like chickens for roasting, and detectives noted they were nearly always found on Thursday or on Saturday. The timing seemed to be no mere coincidence, considering the fact that horses went to market in the neighborhood on Wednesday afternoons and Fridays. At length, investigators heard about Vasili Komaroff from other traders in the district. It was curious, they said, that while Vasili seldom brought a horse to market, detectives questioned neighbors of the Komaroffs and learned that family man Vasili had a nasty, violent streak behind the ever-present smile. On one occasion, they were told, he tried to hang his eldest son, an 8-year-old, but was prevented by his wife, who cut the struggling victim down. A raiding party visited Vasili's stable on the pretext of a search for bootleg liquor, and they found his latest victim, trussed and bagged, beneath a pile of hay. In custody, the Wolf of Moscow readily confessed his crimes. In all, he reckoned he had murdered 33 prospective buyers, luring each in turn with promises of bargain prices, killing them in the seclusion of his stable. He confessed to have disposed of half a dozen others in the Moskva River. Their remains were never found. Vasili told the press, "I killed a man who tried to beat me in a horse trade. He was the only one who ever resisted. It was very easy. I just knocked them on their heads with a hammer or strangled them." His murder trial convened on June 7, 1923. Vasili's wife was also charged with murder, on the theory that she scarcely could have overlooked her husband's grisly homework. The proceedings were conducted in Moscow's huge Polytechnic Museum to accommodate gawkers, and Vasili seemed to take it well when, in the pre-dawn hours of June 8, the court condemned him to be shot within the next 3 days. Departing for his cell, the Wolf of Moscow quipped, "Well, it's my turn to be put in the sack now." On June 18, the Komaroffs were executed by a Moscow firing squad. Please like and subscribe to my channel.